the great Steph Curry. Night, night.
Night indeed, everybody. Good evening and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on YouTube, on X, and on Instagram. As always, I'm Bryson Carver. It's fantastic to be with you. First of all, we don't go live much these days, so it's great to be with you live at 5. Make that maybe a trademark moving forward, live at 5. Tons to discuss, mostly NBA playoff stuff. Gregg Popovich, literally right after I finished recording my show on Friday, retired, stepped down as the head coach of the San Antonio Spurs after 29 NBA seasons. Get to that. By the way, he's going to be the president of basketball operations now. Get to that later on in the show. Also get into what was Game 7 that proved me so right on one thing and so wrong on quite another. So definitely stay tuned for that later in the show. My predictions for the second round, we've already had one game played yesterday with the Pacers beating the Cavs, a beat-up Cleveland team. Predict all 4 second-round series in about 45 minutes from now. And a special, it's been a good 2 months plus since I've done Bryson's Best 10. And I figure great time to bring it back now, except it'll be Bryson's Best 11 because there are 11 Star Wars films. Clone Wars film doesn't count. I just kind of associate that with the TV show. May the 4th was yesterday. May the 4th be with you to all of my fellow Star Wars fans out there. Rank all 11 Star Wars movies at the top of the next hour at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Definitely stay tuned for all of that at the end of today's show. But first, I have to admit, because if there's one thing that I try and do with the audience, it's be honest and it's be fully transparent. We obviously didn't have a show on Saturday. This is a weekday show. Game 6 was Friday night, though. And I felt as confident, I think, as any other Warriors fan. Up 3-2. Game 6 at home. Steph Curry going to close them out. Close out the Houston Rockets. Move on. Yesterday, I think, would have been Game 1 against the Minnesota Timberwolves in round 2. And fourth quarter arrives. Warriors are down 2. I'm like, feeling pretty good. This hasn't been our greatest half in the world, but we can just string together some stops. Steph makes some shots, and boom, we advance. And 6 seconds in, Fred VanVleet hits a 4-point play, and I'm thinking, oh boy, this ain't looking so good. And the Warriors go through like a 7-8 minute stretch where they make like one shot, and I'm like, okay, Game 7, and the Golden State Warriors might blow a 3-1 lead. And it is, I will be fully transparent, I was genuinely nervous after Game 6. Because I've had it played out. Not the whole, they were being physical Steph. I know Steph Curry's going to show up in a Game 7. I have no worry about that. Coming in this game, Steph was 4th all time in terms of points per game in a Game 7. I believe he was only behind KD, LeBron. I think Michael Jordan might have been at the top above Steph Curry. But just seeing how the game was playing out, the physicality, and I said, both teams are physical. Houston gets a rep for it, but that's because that's kind of their strength of their team. Warriors can do both. If defense cancels out, Warriors win the series, and that's ultimately what happened with Golden State winning 104-89 in Houston last night. 103-89 Houston last night. And the show wasn't Steph Curry. We'll get to him later in this segment. The story was not Steph Curry. The story was not Jimmy Butler. Made some big plays late, but over the course of the game, he was the story. Draymond Green was awesome last night on Şengün defensively and gave you 16 points. Hit some 3-point shots early on the game. I'm like, Draymond looking good. The story of this basketball game was a man who in his first 11 playoff games, ladies and gentlemen, I believe it was 11 playoff games, averaged 6 points per game. A 6-point per game playoff performer. My buddy Hield. Can we show his numbers in Game 7? How about 33 points? 12 for 15 from the field, 9 for 11 from three-point range. That's tied for the most three-pointers ever made in a Game 7 in NBA history. Buddy Hield was fantastic. I knew, and I tweeted this at halftime, when the Warriors go into halftime with the lead and Steph Curry has hit one shot, and it was a 3 toward the end of the half at about 30 seconds left, I'm like, if he does anything in the second half, we're going to win this game. Draymond's hitting shots from 3. I know Jimmy's going to come through fourth quarter. Buddy Hield gets the job done in the first half. It's a half quarter, essentially. At the end of the first quarter, I'm like, we're in great shape. The Houston crowd is quiet. And what did I say coming into this series about the Warriors-Rockets history within this Golden State dynasty? Because people are like, There's not a player or a coach that was on those Houston teams that's on this Houston team. Fred VanVleet said as much coming in. Fred VanVleet, who's an NBA champion with the Toronto Raptors back in 2019, knocked out my Warriors. And I said, yes, that is true. The coach who's there, Ime Udoka, was not there for that. The players were not there for that. You know who was there for that? The fans. And I said this coming into the series. They've seen Steph Curry hit shots in a Game 6 in 2019 or in a Game 7 of 2018 or some of these matchups where, Clay back in the day obviously was hitting big shots in some of those fourth quarters, and it's just and that old Steph Curry, and he had a splash brother, not the splash brother side of him, Buddy Hield, hitting shots. You could just feel the energy in the crowd. At the broadcast, Stan Van Gundy said as much, like, man, it's dead in here. This does not feel like a Game 7 on the road for the Warriors. They've silenced the crowd in Houston, and the Rockets made their runs. Amin Thompson had a nice third quarter burst that cut it to 3, and it's like, oh, okay, we got a game now. And every single time the Warriors would answer, it was mostly fueled by their defense. I thought that, and I tweeted this, the effort in Game 6 for a closeout opportunity, I thought was nothing short of embarrassing by Golden State. Truly, I thought it was terrible. Offensive rebounds, they were bullied. We know they're smaller, but Steven Adams is not a guy who should literally shift the impact of a series. Some of that's you give credit to Adams, and I would not be mad if the Warriors pursued Steven Adams this offseason. And some of that was, and Draymond said as much, the effort just was not there for this basketball team. So I thought on that front, they were significantly better. I thought Steve Kerr tried Jonathan Kuminga. Listen, I've wanted to believe in this kid since he became a Warrior in 2021. He is high upside, all of it. But this kid is we're in year 4 now with Jonathan Kuminga. He's an outstanding athlete. He's a very mediocre basketball player. There are times, and you got to have a high basketball IQ to play in the Steve Kerr offense. That's why Jimmy Butler's been a seamless fit with this basketball team. That's why Kevin Durant was a great fit with this basketball team. It's not just stars. It's about getting the right kind of stars to fit into this type of offensive system. And Kuminga, half the time, I'm like, what are his intentions? What is he trying to do with the basketball? Is he trying to work within the frame of the offense? Is he trying to go ISO? What is he trying to do when he goes ISO? I know what Steph Curry's doing. Jimmy Butler's doing. Heck, Pods, Brandon Pajemski, I know what he's doing. I darn sure know what Draymond, Jimmy, Buddy Hield's a shooter. I know what his role is. I don't really know what Kuminga's role is. So barring, knock on wood, God forbid, injury or anything of that sort, foul trouble, I don't want to see Jonathan Kuminga in a meaningful basketball game the rest of the playoffs. The Warriors, we knew they were going to move on from him at some point this offseason. It doesn't work. Kirk tried it. Kudos. It doesn't work. And Steve knows it. I did want to discuss that because we'll get in the Rockets side of it. I want to discuss the Steph Curry side of things. Because if you look at a stat line, we can actually show Steph's numbers. As a matter of fact, let's not show Steph numbers because the graphic tells a bigger story than just the raw, box score. But Steph in this game, 22 points, hit 4 3-pointers, 4 of 10, it's 40%. You'll take that. It's about what he shot in the series. It's about what any great shooter would shoot is, at least 40%. But you see, okay, he's played 46 minutes, he scored 22. Well, Steph didn't play that well. I talked about this on Friday's show when I was talking about the Timberwolves knocking out the Lakers and how Anthony Edwards had 15 points and was 0 of 11 from 3-point range. I said, and I actually talked about this last night with Mike Guido. Shout out to Mike, a co-founder of the Grid Network, and has been my draft compatriot for the last 4 years or so. Love Mike. We were talking about this, like what defines a superstar, and my definition was obviously got to be a great player, got to put up great numbers, all of it. But not only do you impact winning, and can you put a championship team around you, but do I make others around me better? Do I do the little stuff beyond scoring that makes us a great team, that makes us a championship contender? And Edwards did that. He passed the basketball. He had 8 assists in that game. He played great defense. Ant Edwards found a way. I think the greatest example of this, Game 7, 2010 Finals, Celtics-Lakers, best rivalry in the NBA. Kobe Bryant goes 6, I believe the number was 6 of 24. He was abysmal offensively, but he rebounded the basketball, and he played defense, and he kicked it out to Ron Artest for the basic game-deciding 3-point shot. Kobe found a way, God rest his soul. Kobe found a way to impact winning, and Steph Curry found a way to impact winning, not just this game, but over the course of the series. We can show you last night Steph Curry, 22 points, but he had 14 of those in the fourth quarter, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, was 50% from the field and 40 from three. Basically, Steph Curry to 50, 40-90 game. And played 46 minutes. He's 37 years old. Speaking of his age, he is the oldest player to lead his team in points, rebounds, and assists in a playoff series. That is who Steph Curry is. Finding a way to impact winning beyond just scoring the basketball, beyond just shooting the basketball. And I thought, listen, I said all series long and coming into this that the Ime Udoka being the Curry stopping coach was the tabloid magazine of the NBA. It's nonsense. It's BS. It's has very little basis in fact. I thought at the second half of Game 6 and in Game 7, Ime Udoka actually did have a strategy that worked because the first 5 games were just, rough up Steph. It doesn't work. Steph's been roughed up over the course of his career, and he's found a way to adjust to that by putting on more muscle, all of it. And by the way, just pure experience. Ime Udoka just said, if we lose Game 7, it's not going to be because this guy went for 35, 40 points. We are just going to double him and we are not letting him go anywhere. And Steph, like the smart basketball player that he is, said, okay, if it's Amin Thompson guarding me, who it has been over the course of a series, if it's Van Vliet on a switch, if it's anybody, Jabari Smith, I'm going to just walk to half court and just make this a 4-on-4 basketball game. Because I think my 4 guys are better than their 4 guys. And we can get good looks, and that's why Buddy Hield went off. Is that, and by the way, even still, Steph Curry, according to Brian Windhorst of ESPN, ran 1.992 miles in this game, which I think is the most he's ever run in a game. We know Steph's off-ball movement, all of it, but that's how he impacts winning. That's how the great players do it. And so, listen, this was kind of a gut check game for the Warriors, and a gut check 2.5 hours for your boy, because as you know, I, like Draymond Green did in February, except I did it in early March when I came back from a 3-week break post-Super Bowl, that I state my claim. The Warriors are going to win the 2025 finals. I said in October. The Celtics were my pick. I think it was Denver. Denver over Boston in the finals was my pick. And by the way, Denver's still alive. But I said, my caveat is that if the Warriors add an all-star championship level number 2 option next to Steph, they are my pick. They did. Jimmy Butler came. That's my pick. And so I just think this basketball team is the smartest left in the playoffs, and there's some smart teams. Oklahoma City plays a smart brand of basketball. So does Denver, so does Boston. But I think it showed a lot about the character of this group, that Draymond gives you his best offensive game in a Game 7, that Steph Curry is his best in the fourth quarter. Buddy Hield, who was good in the series over the course on both ends, by the way, but a nothing burger in Game 6 drops 33 in a Game 7. That's what's great about these games, is that it makes a hero out of somebody. And listen, as for the Houston side of things, look, I said Warriors in 6 coming in. I thought it would be closer than anticipated, at least in the 6 games. I thought that, and I've alluded to this. I talked about Giannis's future on the show on Friday. And Houston is one of the very few teams that have a shot to get Giannis. But I want this on the record, with the Houston Rockets being in the Giannis mix potentially this offseason, because they're going to make changes. If I'm the Houston Rockets calling the Milwaukee Bucks about the availability of Giannis Antetokounmpo, in my opinion, one of the 2 best players in the world right now, I'm calling Milwaukee and saying, I will have conversations with you about any player on my roster, except for one, Amin Thompson. I don't care. Giannis is obviously better, and I'm not moving him. We will have conversations about Alperen Şengün, who has a very bright future. He's 22 years old, got overwhelmed. It's funny. His stat line in Game 7 was actually quite good. Şengün in this game, Alperen Şengün, 21, 14, and 5. But the problem is he's 9-23 for the field. He was overwhelmed by Draymond in this game defensively, and was at the end of Game 4, and obviously the game-saving stop that Draymond made in Golden State. I will have conversations about Şengün. I will have conversations, if he were to opt in, about Fred VanVleet. I will darn sure have conversations about the guy that wears number 9, who we do not say his name on the show. Any of those guys. Amin Thompson is the future of my franchise. I am not moving him. What he gives you defensively, that he's got all of it. If he just puts together a solid offensive game, forget about it. This guy's a superstar in the future. And so I think you give kudos where it's due. And Houston's got a team that's got a bright future. I think it'll be even brighter when they decide to move off of that player, number 9, who plays for them. But that's kind of where we're at in this basketball team. And so that's how I feel about the Houston Rockets moving forward. But as for Golden State, you move on to the next round, and that's how it goes. I'm looking at the Instagram stream, and again, this is the first time we've done the show live on IG, just for the record. It does not appear. I don't know if the IG stream is even working right now. So if there's anyone that can go to the Carving It Up Instagram account, it's just the username is Carving It Up Podcast. Check that out and see, because I'm looking on my phone. I've got nothing, but then again, I'm on my own account. So I don't know if the IG stream is working right now. If not, that's okay. We still got YouTube on my channel and the Grid's channel, and then the Grid's X account. But nonetheless, that's what we have. So, and also, by the way, this just came in. This came in 17 minutes ago. 18 minutes ago from Adam Schefter, right as we started the show, that the Baltimore Ravens are releasing Justin Tucker. After drafting kicker Tyler Loop, the organization continues to insist it is a football decision. Now, of course, the elephant in the room is that Justin Tucker has been accused of inappropriate behavior by 16 massage therapists from 8 different Baltimore spas and wellness centers. This is from Adam Schefter, by the way. All of the alleged incidents occurred during sessions between 2012 and 2016, covering Tucker's first 5 seasons in the NFL. Tucker has publicly disputed the allegations twice, including a statement he posted on social media in January, calling the accusations unequivocally false. The NFL has been investigating the matter. And then there's a thing showing his accomplishments: 8-time Pro Bowler, 8-time All-Pro, 7-time Pro Bowler, all of it. Longest kick ever made in NFL history. So just quick take on this. And I'm shocked. I will admit, with Baltimore being my Steelers' biggest rival, the whole Tyler Loop draft pick by the Ravens, the kicker, kind of went by the wayside. I didn't really give it the attention that it deserved. But yeah, Justin Tucker, one of the greatest kickers of all time, with potential allegations of some seriously inappropriate behavior. We'll see when the facts come out. Is no longer a Baltimore Raven. And so, listen, to the Ravens have access to information that the rest of us don't. Who knows? But that's where we're at right now with that situation. So there you go. Again, I don't know if the IG is even working right now. I'll keep it up just in case. But thus far, I'm looking on another tab, and it doesn't look like it's working. Anyways, we can shift on and move on to Game 7, the other Game 7 that was Saturday night between the Nuggets and the Clippers. So I picked the Clippers in this series, and I have to admit, after that game, it was such a mix of emotions. Because on one hand, I was totally wrong. It went to Game 7, but I picked the Clippers to win the series. My thing is length, depth, athleticism. Kawhi Leonard, when healthy, is an excellent playoff performer. We saw that in Game 2 of the series. Yes, Denver has the best player not only in the series, but in the world right now in Jokic. And yes, they have the championship experience, but no depth. Michael Porter Jr. is beat up. This kid, David Adelman, who's got a very bright future, but he's young. Like, he's got some, there's some things that he's trying to learn on the job in the NBA playoffs. So we'll see how that all works out. And so I thought the Clippers would win this series in a close 6 games. So I was wrong on that front. And simultaneously, I should have let this bleed into my analysis more than it did. And for that, I apologize. I messed this up. But boy, and basically anyone that knows anything about basketball was validated on one thing. And that is, when you absolutely need him the most, playoff James Harden is nowhere to be found. Or maybe playoff James Harden is exactly where he is and where you need him to be. We can show you his numbers in Game 7. It was a typical James Harden closeout playoff game. 7 points, 2 for 8 from the field, 1 for 4 from 3-point range. The thing that's most alarming to me is not the 7 points. It is the 8 shots. James Harden, in a do-or-die game, took 8 shots. And for the record, in the second half, via air balls and lack of aggressiveness, James Harden did not touch the rim in the second half of that basketball game, in which the Denver Nuggets, by the way, beat the brakes off the Clippers. 120-101 doesn't even begin to tell you how bad Denver smoked the Clippers in this game. Went on a big third quarter run, and that was all she wrote. But it is, we can show you, let's show the because I've said often about James Harden, I've always said, like, I don't want to relitigate the playoff struggles because it's boring and we all kind of know. But at this point, I think this might be the last truly relevant game that James Harden plays, because I did see the Clippers as a team that can make some real noise in the playoffs. I probably wouldn't have taken them to beat OKC. You'll see my predictions for Denver against OKC later in the show, but in about 25 minutes from now. But I thought, listen, Ty Lue's a great coach. Kawhi's a great playoff performer. They've got the depth. Sure. By the way, shocker to me, they have a real home court advantage at the Intuit Dome. So maybe they could make something happen. Maybe they could upset OKC. Who knows? But let's talk about James Harden in the playoffs. So here's some of these. Some of these numbers are insane. And then we will talk about the playoff history. Let's go and show these. James Harden has, for those that are listening, James Harden has 26 games with more turnovers than made shots. He has 35 games with 3 or fewer made shots. There's a double on that graphic. I apologize. But 55 games. It's double because it's so shocking. 55 games with 4 or fewer made shots. He has more elimination games scoring under 20, 11, than over 30, 8. 1-4 in his last 5 game sevens. James Harden, 10-15 in elimination basketball games in the playoffs. So now let's relitigate the history. In 2012, in the NBA Finals, James Harden was on an Oklahoma City team with a young Kevin Durant, a young Russell Westbrook. That team was, oh my goodness, they could have been the Warriors before the Warriors. There were 3 MVPs, future MVPs, of course, on that same team that faced the Miami Heat when LeBron James got his first title. And in the closeout game 5, or over the course of that series, rather, James Harden shot 37% from the field and did not break double figures in 3 of the 5 games in which the Thunder got gentlemen swept by the Heat. The next year, his first season in Houston, okay, down 3-0 to the Thunder, and in game 4, he turned the ball over 10 times, shot 4 for 12. They would not have won that game 4 if Chandler Parsons didn't go crazy just to get them to the game 5. In 2015, again, down 3-2 to the Clippers, he is having an atrocious game, ladies and gentlemen, shooting 5 of 20 from the field. They're about to lose that series to LA in 6 games. Who was the coach at the time of the Rockets? It was Kevin McHale, Celtics legend. Kevin McHale benches James Harden in game 6, and the Rockets come back to win that game because Josh Smith is shooting fire out of his eyeballs. Win game 6 in an improbable fourth quarter comeback. They win game 7. And then in game 5, the closeout game against my Warriors in the conference finals, James Harden breaks the NBA playoff record by turning the basketball over 12 times. And the Rockets go down in smoke to Golden State. 2 years later, what might be the worst James Harden playoff game of all time, and that's saying something. Game 6, down 3-2 at home in a year where I thought Harden was league MVP. I thought Harden was the MVP of the National Basketball Association over Westbrook in 2017. Down 3-2 against a Spurs team with no Tony Parker and no Kawhi Leonard. James Harden shoots 2 for 11 from the field, scores 10 points, commits 6 turnovers, and the Houston Rockets lose by 39 points in Game 6 to a Kawhi and Tony Parker-less San Antonio Spurs team. A Spurs team that, without those 2 players against the Warriors, got swept. Now, that was the greatest team ever, in my opinion, but that's a different conversation for a different day. Go to 2018. Now, yes, they are facing the super team Warriors, the Steph KD Warriors, but they're up 3-2 in large part because Chris Paul went crazy in the fourth quarters of game 4 and 5. No Chris Paul the rest of the series. Game 6, you lose. Okay, Warriors were supposed to win. Game 6, Clay. Game 7, you lead by 15 points in this basketball game at one point, and in the second half, you are the face, James Harden, of a Houston Rockets team that missed an NBA playoff record, 27 consecutive three-point shots. In 2019, against this same Warriors team, except Chris Paul's there, healthy. Kevin Durant is not there, not healthy. Game 6, down 3-2 at home, with a game in which Steph Curry, the best player in the series, scores 0 points in the first half. And yet and still, fourth quarter, he goes nuclear. I think he had like 23 or something in the fourth quarter, 33 total in the second half, and you disappear in the fourth quarter. 2020, with your buddy, Russell Westbrook. You retired Chris Paul. They moved on from Chris Paul. So bring in your best friend, Russell Westbrook. We're going to win a championship together. You advance past the Thunder in the first round. You play the Lakers in round 2 in 2020 in the bubble. I know those games don't count because LeBron James won a championship that year, but I know that's what the Jordan fans would like to say. Let's get that out of the way. In game 4, down 2-1. You need this game. You want to tie this series up, make it a best of 3. It's not like it's a home court situation. You're in a bubble in Orlando, here at Disney World. And in the game 4, he shoots 18% from the floor, and the Rockets get gentlemen swept by the Lakers. 2021 disappears. I know there was the hamstring injury. I get it. Disappeared in game 7 when Kevin Durant maybe has the best playoff game of his career. The Bucks beat you in a game 7 in Brooklyn. 2022, you got tired of Brooklyn. KD, Kyrie, they don't work. So let's go to Philadelphia. That'll work with Joel Embiid. In game 6 against the Miami Heat, I remember talking about that game on this show. Game 6 against a less talented Miami Heat team. Ladies and gentlemen, James Harden takes one shot in the fourth quarter in the closeout game 6, down 3-2, has 11 points. He shot 9 times a game, shot 1 time in the fourth quarter. I literally went on my show the next day and said, I think James Harden quit in that basketball game. His body language, he seemed to have no interest in that game. So you come back in 2023, you got a full season with Embiid. You're up 3 games, 2-2, with game 6 on your home floor. Chance to close out Boston, go to the Eastern Conference Finals, which I don't think the Sixers have done since the Iverson days. And you disappear in game 6, of course. In 2023, he scored by scoring 0 in the fourth quarter and shooting 25% from the field. And in game 7, you shoot 27% from the field and score 9 points. And in 2025, this year, game 7, season on the line, you go 2 for 8. You don't hit the rim in the second half, and you score 7 points. I know that was a long relitigation, which is why I don't do it anytime that the playoff Harden discussion comes. But in this spot, it's unavoidable. And it is, listen, I have said, I think we've gotten better about this. I think the basketball media and basketball fans, even to a degree, have gotten better about this in recent years. And even the sports media, sports betting fans, all of it, have gotten better about this in recent years, is not classifying every single playoff defeat as a choke job. Like that, there was a time about 3-4 years ago where it's like, oh, they choked. Like that's become overused. It's become like the C word. Choked. They didn't choke. They just lost, right? No team was better. Whatever happened. To me, a choke job is either you're supposed to win or you're expected to perform well, and the moment looked too big for you. Folks, the first bad Harden playoff moment was 2012 in the finals against Miami. And then the most recent bad playoff moment from Harden was 2 nights ago, on Saturday night against the Denver Nuggets. In that span, name me the one great Harden playoff moment. You can't. And so it does come to the C word, choke. He did choke in a game 7. He does choke in game 6s and 5s and all of it. And it does beg the question. This sounds harsh. Matter of fact, I'm not even going to ask the question. I'm just going to make the statement because it's what we see. These game 7s, these game 6, up 3-2, down 3-2 especially. He's scared of the moment. And when I say that, it's like I'm attacking his character. Listen, take that for what you will, because I don't think James Harden's a bad guy. I think James Harden has done a lot of good in community, all of it. Again, there's questionable behavior in Houston. We understand that. But these games look too big for him. And so, the Clippers, I guess, are kind of trapped with him. He's on a long-term deal, and they made the deal to basically move on from every potential asset they had to get James Harden, to pair him with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Kawhi wasn't healthy last year. They move on from Paul George. Now it's Kawhi and Harden. And in a playoff series with two guys who aren't guys you necessarily want in your teams in big games, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, credit where it is due, ladies and gentlemen. I thought Westbrook actually had a really important impact in the series. He had a big-time first half, or he had a few big-time plays in game 1 when the Nuggets won that game in overtime. He had a big 3 to help send it to overtime. And in game 5, he goes, I think Westbrook had like 16 points in the first half to help spur them on to a game 5 win, and Jamal Murray went for 40+. And then in game 7, effort plays that he's hanging on the rim. He's excited. And by the way, I didn't even realize this until today. He's going to be playing his old team, the Thunder, in round 2. Now, he played the Thunder actually the year after they traded him to the Rockets, but that was in the bubble. That was not at OKC. Well, game 1's literally in OKC tonight. So that'll be fun to watch. And again, I'll predict the second round playoff series in about 15 minutes. But it is, and I don't want to like overshadow Denver in all of this, but like Jokic was great. By Jokic standards, he was really good. I don't think he was like the game 4 win when Aaron Gordon had the buzzer beating dunk. I thought Jokic was unreal. Like it was like, oh, that's like best player in the world type of games. I thought he was really good. He averaged a triple-double over the course of the series, but I didn't think that this was a situation where he just absolutely took over and just overwhelmed the Clippers. Christian Brown played well. Jamal Murray, Westbrook had an impact. But again, it's James Harden. It's postseason time. Is the calendar set to May? Okay, he's probably going to choke his guts out. And that's just the reality of who your team is if you employ James Harden. And that's where we're at. And so it's, again, like I went through all of that. There's not a moment in a big game where you could say, oh, man, he carried us tonight. And it's 2 things can be true, guys. He's MVP. He's one of the greatest scorers of this generation. People try to say one of the greatest scorers all the time. I think that's absurd. I get the advanced analytics. Watch the basketball games, particularly in May. And I'm not anti-analytics. I'm pro-analytics to a degree. He's a great player, first ballot Hall of Famer, all of it. But he's also the most notorious playoff choke artist probably in NBA history. And that's the reality. Come back after 1 minute on Carving It Up. I played the night intro, even though the night intro is usually saved for like the rare 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock shows. But in this instance, the Warriors close out a series. That'll be our theme. In this case, it is live at 5, Carving Up Live. We'll be back in just a minute on the show to talk Gregg Popovich, who stepped down as the head coach of the San Antonio Spurs, talk about his legacy after the break. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. I've got the headphones on because I'm trying to see if the IG stream, I actually took down the original one. Trying to see if hopefully we can be able to get the show back on there. I think, okay, I see it right there. Yeah. So we're good. We're live on Carving Up Live on IG now. So, okay, that works now. So that's good. Earlier, it was just like, I can only see like the thumbnail. And so, yeah, I've got to open in the tab now. So we are officially now live on IG. So welcome into our IG audience. Appreciate everybody for stopping in. We're live, of course, on X and YouTube as well. Wanted to shift to Gregg Popovich, who on Friday, literally a half hour after the show ended, and it's funny, I mentioned the Spurs as a potential destination. In fact, maybe my pick in the here and now to where Giannis Antetokounmpo ends up. But right after that show ended, Gregg Popovich announced that he is stepping down as the head coach of the San Antonio Spurs after 29 seasons with the franchise. He's now going to be the president of basketball operations moving forward. So let's go and pull up Gregg Popovich's resume because it is incredible, of course, as you might imagine. He's a 5-time NBA champion. He's a 3-time coach of the year. He has won more basketball games than any coach in the history of the NBA. 1,422 wins for Gregg Popovich. 22 consecutive playoff appearances. That is tied for the most ever, and he is the longest tenure head coach in NBA history by a long shot, by the way. 29 seasons. Jerry Sloan with the Jazz is in second place at 23 seasons. So Popovich kind of shattered that record, was the head coach of the Spurs for essentially 3 decades. Gregg Popovich is a layered individual, as most great individuals are. It's funny. On one hand, he's like the drill sergeant, no nonsense. I mean, he's got a military background, like no BS type of coach. And on the other hand, he is a player's coach. He was kind of the first guy. People get on Kawhi Leonard. Where do you think Kawhi Leonard learned load management from? It's from the Spurs, from Gregg Popovich. He was kind of the guy that introduced that, where it's like, man, Tim Duncan, we'll give you a night off on a back-to-back. Manu, Tony, especially as those guys got older, we don't need this back-to-back in Memphis. We'll give you the night off, right? And he kind of invented that, for better or for worse. That was in large part Gregg Popovich and the San Antonio Spurs formula to keep their guys fresh as they got older for championship runs at the end. And the last title they got really was with a much older team in 2014. But that run that the Spurs had between 1999 and 2007, they won half the league champion, or really, well, not quite half, 4 out of 9, but 4 championships in 9 years. That's, people talk about, are the Spurs a dynasty? You want to include all 5 because Duncan was there, Ginobili. Obviously, Duncan and Pop are kind of the 2 constants of that. I think it is undebatable. We can debate about the 5th title because there was a 7-year gap between title 4 and 5, although you can almost argue, well, then what does that make the Patriots run with Brady and Belichick? Like, we can have those discussions, but that run between 99, lockout shortened season, and 2007, when they beat the Cavs in LeBron's first finals appearance, that is unquestionably a dynasty. 4 titles in 9 years. That's rare stuff. That's like Chicago Bulls stuff. That's 80s Lakers, Showtime Lakers with Magic Johnson stuff. That's Warriors in the span of between 2015 and 2022. That's what that type of run is. And Gregg Popovich was the coach of that. And listen, he was as, let's call it, testy with the media. That's the nice way to put it. To put it mildly, anytime there was those post first quarter or post third quarter interviews with the head coach, he was not always terribly respectful of reporters. If he felt the question was dumb or below his high basketball intellect, not a guy who took kindly to such questions. He'd usually be short and he'd just be right back walking to the sidelines discussing the next play with his assistant coaches or with the team. But that was who he was. And so I think, listen, you give him, you give him credit for an incredible run in San Antonio and for being a visionary as it pertains to player rest, where I can coach these guys hard. And he talked about this with Tim Duncan, who I think is indisputably the greatest power forward of all time. I have Duncan as my 7th greatest player of all time. I have ultimate respect for the big fundamental. But Pop talked about, like, I'm not the successful coach I am if Tim Duncan does not allow me to coach him just as hard as everybody else. This was the same case. There's so many similarities with the Patriots dynasty and with the Spurs because there was a gap between titles. There was like the early success and the longevity of Brady and Duncan and the longtime coach Belichick and Pop. But Brady and the Patriots' success, a lot of it was predicated on Bill could be as hard on Tom as he could be on the backup right guard. Like that was what was the part of the ethos of the Patriots dynasty, is like no one is above reproach. No one is above being coached hard. In large part, like Steve Kerr coaches Steph Curry hard. Andy Reid coaches Mahomes hard. Like kind of the new dynasties. That's kind of how the one constant of it. And so you give him credit. And again, like and this is going to sound silly, but it's how I feel about it. I mean, obviously Gregg Popovich is an older white guy in his late 70s who's had health issues, by the way. We'll kind of touch on that. It's really cool, and I'm not trying to say that Gregg Popovich is like the ultra minority of this, because that would not be fair. It's great to see Gregg Popovich, a guy of his background, discuss certain issues that he did without really a care in the world for what anyone thought of it, especially, by the way, and listen, he's San Antonio. Not exactly or at least maybe not in San Antonio, but Texas, certainly not exactly a liberal state. And forget the liberal aspect of it, because I think some of the issues Pop talked about are not political as it pertains to, issues that Black Americans suffer every day in this country. I give him massive kudos for kind of setting the bar that I think in some ways, his apprentice, Steve Kerr, kind of took that same thing and moved forward. Again, absent political beliefs, just on raw human issues, Pop was outstanding. And so I give him credit on that front. I give him credit as a coach. Again, the longest tenured coach in NBA history, the most wins by any coach in NBA history. And the fact that his tenure spans from David Robinson, the Admiral, all the way to Victor Wembanyama. The fact that when he took the job in 1996, the Bulls had just started the second of their three-peat. And when he leaves, the Golden State Warriors are going to, I really do think they're going to win the championship, but the Warriors are in the midst of potentially adding to their dynasty. So think about the start of Pop's run. You had the Bulls dynasty, then his dynasty, and then simultaneously kind of the Lakers three-peat with Shaq and Kobe, and then you had the Warriors dynasty, and the Heatles had a fourth straight finals run. LeBron kind of had his own dynasty. It's pretty remarkable just the longevity this guy is able to bring to the table. And by the way, again, the health issues, there was a press conference today in San Antonio. I thought it was a classic Pop press conference where, no BS, no nonsense, but added a little humor in there. But there was also kind of it was very much a John Wooden moment. We all remember the infamous photo of the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the greatest college basketball player of all time, as far as I'm concerned, and UCLA great, when he's helping John Wooden out onto the court, an older John Wooden, and it was kind of like the not passing of the torch, but it was like, you were there for me, so now I'm here for you. It was like really a beautiful moment, and I thought you saw that with Tim Duncan and Manu Ginobili. Tony Parker might have been in there as well, helping Pop to the stage after he suffered all these health issues. He had a stroke. There was, I don't want to get too specific into this, but you saw it in the video, there was issues with mobility with his left arm. It was a somber moment. And to see this champion, one of, I think, no question, one of the three greatest basketball coaches ever. And we can Phil Jackson, Red Auerbach, Gregg Popovich. It's kind of that. You can throw in maybe a Pat Riley in there or someone like that. But I think Pop's top three all time in my book. And so to see him have the impact that he had, in the longevity that he was able to put together, kudos. And a hats off to Gregg Popovich on an outstanding, on a legendary career. And by the way, he's still a part of the Spurs, which is great. I joked with somebody the other day, it would be so funny if Gregg Popovich goes to the front office, which is where he originated. I believe he's the GM of the Spurs, didn't like the job the coach was doing, hell with this, I'm going to be the coach, and ends up being one of the three greatest coaches ever, certainly in the Mount Rushmore of NBA coaches in that regard. I was talking to somebody the other day, wouldn't it be hilarious if Pop goes to the front office and his first big move is acquiring Giannis? That would be, because I think the Spurs have a shot and a package to be able to pull that off. So kudos to Pop on an outstanding career. My friend Alfred is in the comments. Shout out to Alfred. And please go subscribe. What are you doing, guys? To the Metropolitan Report podcast, all things New York Mets baseball. He's doing a great job. The Mets are playing outstanding baseball as of late, which I know makes Alfred very happy. Put his comment. He says, Pop realized, sorry, my eyesight must suck. Let me see it. There we go. Pop realized that he had many relationships with many young men of many ethnic backgrounds throughout the course of his career. No question. Had the sort of the social conscience, a cognizance, understand what was going on around him. And again, a lot of that was the generational difference and being around guys from different backgrounds, be it in America, overseas, black, white. It was a beautiful thing to watch. And so you give Pop major kudos on that front. And Alfred says, had his health not declined, I'm sure he'd still be coaching. I agree with you. I think the last year, you have to imagine, obviously, took a toll on him. And he's like, I can't physically do it the way that I feel like I need to be able to be successful moving forward. And that's why he stepped down. And he says players love playing for Pop. He took a lot of guys that didn't fit elsewhere and incorporated them into his system. And so you give him credit for that. It was an unbelievable run. And I'm glad Pop's still going to be around the game. I really, really am. And I'll say this. I think he will be, Phil Jackson, I think, is the greatest coach ever. Man, he's got 11 championships. I think he's got 13 total. I think he won 2 as a player, if I'm not mistaken. But, I mean, it's hard. Again, 11 championships is kind of absurd. But Phil Jackson was abysmal in the Knicks front office. I think Pop will be really good because he obviously has the connections already with R.C. Buford and everybody in San Antonio. And so I think he's going to do a great job there in his role as the president of basketball operations. I'm looking at our IG stream, and I think it's glitched again. I think our IG stream is just not – it is not working today. So I apologize to all those that attempted to watch on that front. We'll try and get that corrected before, because we can't stream on IG if it's a pre-recorded show. We can if it's live. I'm not sure when the next live show is going to be. It might not be while I'm still here in Florida, which is, not too much longer. So, be able to try and get that fixed before the next episode of Carving It Up Live. Transition now to the NBA playoffs, because, boy, we've got a monster of a second round. We got two great games tonight, two great game ones. Knicks Celtics tips off in about an hour and 15 minutes at the time that this show is live. Boston is a 9.5-point favorite. You'll hear my predictions on that series soon. Nuggets Thunder, that line has just kept moving up. It started like OKC -9. Now it's OKC -10.5 in their game one against the Denver Nuggets. That game tips off basically right after the Knicks Celtics game, ends at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. So the second round series are set. We got 8 teams left with hopes and dreams and aspirations of winning the 2025 title. So without further ado, let's get all this mess out of the way. No more pleasantries. Let's go. Here we go. So we'll start Eastern Conference. Before we even start, let's get to real quick. Alfred has an interesting point. He says the favorites are winning those series. I don't know if he's talking about the two game ones that are tonight or just in general, but that very well could happen. So let's see how y'all feel about my first prediction, where the favorite Cleveland Cavaliers are taking on the Pacers. So game one's already been played. That was yesterday night, right before Warriors-Rockets game 7. The Spurs, I was talking about Pop. The Pacers won that basketball game by a final score, if I can pull this up here, by a final score of 121-112 over a beat-up Cleveland team. And game 2's tomorrow night. There's some real injury concerns for the Cavs. You look at their injury report, DeAndre Hunter, Darius Garland, who didn't play game 1, and Evan Mobley are all game-time decisions. So we're in a spot where if Cleveland is without 2 or, God forbid, all 3 of those, they are really in trouble. Donovan Mitchell, who has been a great playoff performer in his career, is going to have to put together a Herculean effort in game 2. Obviously, the Pacers are of the mindset, hey, we stole game 1. Now we've got the home court. We can kind of chill in game 2. I think with Cleveland as beat up as they are, the Pacers should be like, what the heck? Let's go and go up 2-0, headed back to Indiana. And so, listen, game 2, the Cavs are still a 9.5-point favorite. So the bettors still like Cleveland. I guess they seem to feel that at least some of those guys, like a DeAndre Hunter, I think Garland will probably give it a go in game 2, will play in that spot, because you can't just rely on Donovan Mitchell and Ty Jerome. Like that's not a realistic formula to win NBA playoff games in the second round. And so listen, I'll say this. These are 2 very different basketball teams. Cleveland's defense oriented, that, by the way, they do have a great offense, and the Pacers are a high-flying, up-tempo basketball team led obviously by Tyrese Halliburton, and who, by the way, was unbelievable in game 5, hit the game-winning layup, and unfortunately got overshadowed by his dad making an idiot move. I'm not saying his dad's an idiot. He made an idiot move confronting Giannis after that game 5. But all of that being said, I think it is unbelievable. After game 1, which happened to be the very first game of these playoffs, I'm always like, don't overreact to game 1s. Don't do that. But the very first game of these playoffs was Bucks and Pacers. I picked the Bucks because I'm like, I feel like Dame's going to come back and give them something, and Giannis is the second best player in the world in my mind. He will, just by virtue of being Giannis, carry them past a Pacer team that's not all that great in the defensive end. And after game 1, and Dame didn't play that game, and this was before the terrible Achilles injury, but I watched it, I was like, what was I thinking? Like, you doofus, what were you? Pacers are a way better basketball team. The Bucks got to where they are just because they have Giannis at all. And I mean, the Pacers are the better coach. Rick Carlisle with Doc Rivers. They're one of the deepest teams left in the playoffs, or in the league in general. And so, with all that being said, I'm going to take the upset, ladies and gentlemen. Give me the Indiana Pacers in a 7-game rock fight against the Cavs, the 1 seed, second best record in the sport, 64-win Cleveland Cavaliers. We've been talking all season long. Cavs, Celtics, here we go. Conference finals. Forget all that. Pacers knock them out in 7, and the Cavaliers go home, in large part due to injury. So you do have to add that component to it. And also some of it is just Indiana's a good match, Cleveland's a good matchup for Indiana. They want to play up-tempo. Cleveland doesn't necessarily want to do that as much as the Pacers do. That's their lifeblood. Siakam, Miles Turner, all these guys, Nimhard. This is a really deep basketball team. It's a well-coached team. Halliburton's going to go off. And the Pacers, yes, will win a Game 7 in Cleveland, Ohio to advance to the Eastern Conference Finals for the second straight year in a row. So there you go. Cavs go out in 7, and ain't nobody going to be happier than me. if Cleveland goes out in the second round, 64 wins, and they can't even get to the conference finals. And Alfred says the comments, Cavs losing this series if they go down 0-2. I could not agree with you more, sir. I actually think the Cavs will muster a hard-fought Game 2 win, beat up, and I think it'll just kind of go back and forth. Pacers go on the road to win Game 7, i.e. the Golden State Warriors, what they did last night in Houston. And they will play, the Pacers will, the winner of a series that begins tonight, the New York Knicks, the Boston Celtics. What's funny about this is we understand like the New York-Boston rivalry starts with, first and foremost, Yankees-Red Sox, which I'm a Red Sox fan, so I despise the New York Yankees. And so, but Boston-New York, got 2 Super Bowls out of it this century with the Patriots and the Giants, and those were 2, especially the first one, classics of games. But all things considered, we really haven't gotten that many great, like if you think Eastern Conference great playoff series, you think a lot of them involve the Celtics, obviously, because they've been the kings of the East, most championships ever. You think some of those LeBron Celtics series, be it when he was in Cleveland or Miami, even Miami Celtics the last couple of times have been great series. You think about, outside of 2024, you think about some of those Knicks and Pistons, some of those Knicks and Pacers series, those Pacers, Pacers Bulls, Knicks Bulls. You think about Pistons, all of these series, Knicks Celtics really hasn't been one of those. And so just for the sheer star power aspect of it, for big brands, Boston being one of probably the 2 or 3 most popular brands in the NBA, the Knicks obviously in that conversation as well. Madison Square Garden, TD Garden in Boston. I know it's not the old Boston Garden, but it's got the same feel. And here's the problem, is that the Knicks can't beat the Celtics. Like, they can't beat the Celtics. I'm not saying they won't beat them for a game in this series, but they're 0-4 against Boston. They lost on average by 16 points per game to the Celtics. As great as Jalen Brunson is, Jason Tatum is the best player in the series, followed by Brunson. Then it's Jaylen Brown. Listen, on paper, you look at Cat. You look like that's kind of the matchup. Like, if obviously you're talking about a center and either a shooting guard or a small forward, really a shooting guard. The matchup comes down to who's better in the series, Karl-Anthony Towns or Jaylen Brown. Listen, Cat should, in theory, like first overall pick. We understand it. Jaylen Brown's a Finals MVP. I know he's beat up, but I trust him in this series. I trust him with Boston getting rest. They gentlemen swept Orlando like I thought they would, and I think they're going to gentlemen sweep the Knicks. Give me Celtics in 5. I don't think this is going to be a very long series. I think it'll be entertaining. I think Jalen Brunson's capable of going crazy for a game or two. They could win a Game 3 at Madison Square Garden, down 0-2, sure. But again, the Knicks constructed their team to beat Boston, and I get it. The last game went to overtime. I think, honest to God, and I've seen my Warriors do this when they had, Kevin Durant and were like basically unstoppable. I've seen great championship teams be in the second half of the regular season, and one team like Cleveland, for example, goes on, gets the 1 seed, wins 60 games, all of it, and Boston's like, we're the defending champs. As long as everybody's healthy, we feel like we can beat anybody. And I think the Celtics are going to win the East. I felt that coming into the season. I feel like they're the best roster in the NBA right now. And so, with respect to the Knicks, and with respect to Jalen Brunson, who I love, Celtics in 5. This is a very quick series. Alfred says they're a great team. I don't even know if the Knicks are a great team. They're a really good team with a great superstar scorer, clutch player in Brunson. But he says Knicks are a great team, but their kryptonite is Boston. Knicks average around 5 inch points per game in round 1. That is not going to cut it against the defending champs. Also, something too that I can't see happening with the Knicks winning this series. Who's guarding the Boston perimeter players? Brunson's not a good defender. You could throw out a guy like Mikal Bridges can defend, but like a Miles McBride or something, like they're going to have to reach deep. We know the campaign who had the big game winning against Detroit, he can't defend. Like these Boston guards, like a Pritchard or a Jaylen Brown, who's defending them? Even Drew Holiday to a degree. So I think I think the Knicks are cooked. I really, really do. And last 2 comments on this series before we move on to the West. Alfred says Celtics will beat up the Knicks physically. Brunson's going to be worn down by Game 3. Very possible. I think they're going to just throw the kitchen sink at Brunson. Listen, and by the way, the Knicks still do have guys who can step up, like an OG Anunoby, like a Cat. Who knows what he gives you in this series? I say coin flip Davis. Maybe I should say coin flip Cat. Because he is, it really just depends on the night if he's productive or not. And he says I like this. The ghost of Porzingis will haunt MSG. Yeah, Porzingis obviously started his career when Stephen A. Smith famously said that we have been bamboozled, led astray, run amok, and flat out deceived. That's what the Knicks will look like in the second round. They'll go out in 5 games to the defending champion, the Boston Celtics, who feel like the Eastern Conference is like an annual tradition. Boston's in it. And I think they'll take on the team they beat last year, but it'll be a closer series. More on that in like 2 weeks or so. The Indiana Pacers to the Western Conference, which we know is the Western Conference. The Denver Nuggets, 2023 NBA champions against the Oklahoma City Thunder, 68-win number 1 seed. You got the 2 front runners for the MVP award, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the Thunder, Nikola Jokic for the Denver Nuggets. And so, listen, right now, tonight, OKC's a 10.5-point favorite. I'm just going to tell you in advance, I think the Thunder are going to smoke Denver in Game 1. Denver just came off a 7-game war with the Clippers. Could have went down 3-1 if Aaron Gordon doesn't save the day in Game 4. Jokic was great in the series. Westbrook hustle plays, whereas the Thunder played far and away. And I'm including the Miami Heat in this discussion because the Heat at least competed with Cleveland in Game 2. The worst team in these playoffs were the Memphis Grizzlies. The worst team in the playoffs were the Memphis Grizzlies. And okay, Oklahoma City did what I think we all thought they'd do, and they dusted them quick. I know Games 3 and 4 were kind of close. Was there ever a moment you thought in those 2 games that Memphis were going to win? Let's just say in the fourth quarter of those games, because the Memphis was crushing Oklahoma City in Game 3. So, funny enough, again, with the caveat that I put for my Warriors, for them winning the championship, acquiring an all-star championship level number 2 next to Steph, they did that. Had they not done that, oh, what a world I would not like to live in. The Nuggets were actually my pick, not just to win the West, but to win the finals. So, they're still alive. And so they were originally my pick. And Oklahoma City, who I thought would have a great regular season, have a potential shot to go on a run to the conference finals, I've been very skittish on. I think SGA is an outstanding basketball player, great scorer, efficient scorer, all of it, who is – Memphis is a bad example of it because what the heck? I mean, it's the worst team in these playoffs. This is when he's going to start to get tested to a degree because I don't think Denver's a very good defensive team where – are you going to try and bait the officials into foul calls? Because we knew that was the case all season long in the regular season. And again, SGA would be my MVP. He was the face of a roster that won 68 games. By the way, a roster that's young, talented, I don't think is as good as Boston's roster. I don't think it's as good as you could even make the case Cleveland's roster. They're close, but I give the Cavs a slight advantage. But SGA is the difference. SGA is the difference to this. And I know I said this last series about Denver on the other side of this. The Ty Lue versus David Adelman matchup should go to Ty Lue. Not saying that it didn't even necessarily go in Ty Lue's favor. It just Ty Lue is coaches James Harden, and that's always going to be a problem for coaches in the NBA playoffs. But Mark Daniels has been a really good coach in the league for a while now, for the last few years in Oklahoma City, kind of helping build a rebuilding trade-savvy team into, they could win the championship this year and could have won it last year as the 1 seed. I feel like I'm going to hate myself in 2 weeks when this series is over. I don't trust Denver's perimeter defenders. I think Jokic is going to have put on a Herculean effort, which he is fully capable of doing because he is the best basketball player in the world right now. But you don't have playoff James Harden to rely on this time, or rely on not showing up as he routinely does not do if you're the Denver Nuggets. SGA has been even last year when he wasn't quite what he was regular season, SGA had a good playoffs. I have questions about the officiating as it pertains to SGA trying to get those bait foul calls. The better team should win this series. I'm going to go, Denver's going to push them because they have Jokic. I'm going to go Thunder in 6. Over the Denver Nuggets. Again, do I feel great about the pick? Not really, especially after Denver kind of burned me in round 1. But there's also, again, just basic. Some of this is just basic math. The Nuggets have a day in between their last first-round game and their first second-round game, and the Oklahoma City Thunder have not played a basketball game since April 26th. So they've gotten 8 days, essentially, in between round 1 and round 2. It's again, just the rest advantage favors Oklahoma City drastically. Interesting. Oh, wow. Dang, Alfred coming out strong. The joke is on the Joker. Westbrook is a clown. They fire Mike Malone. Jokic and Murray seem like they aren't motivated. I don't agree with that last statement at all. I thought Murray was great, especially in Game 5 in this series. And I think Jokic didn't play as well as we're used to seeing him play. And again, that's a pretty high standard. The last 3 games of that series, I think there is a level of, oh, you guys don't believe in us? Like, you don't, okay, we fired our coach. We won the championship 2 years. We are the most recent NBA champion out of the Western Conference. You're going to disrespect us? So I do think there's the motivation there. And Alfred says, SGA and crew won it, and you could tell. Oh, I think they won it, no question. And I think their youth can be an asset in the sense that, hey, it's almost like they're too dumb to know that they're not supposed to be progressing this quickly. And I think if they did win the championship, they'd be the youngest champion in NBA history. But at the same time, I don't think the Thunder are going to win the title. I don't feel great about this pick. I'm going to go Thunder in 6. I feel like if the Denver Nuggets win this series and be like, gosh darn it, you bet against Jokic again. What are you doing? So, but the Thunder are a better team. They won 68 games. I think they're going to get clipped in the Western Conference Finals by the winner of the next series I'll be predicting. So here we go. Minnesota Timberwolves, 6 seed. Golden State Warriors, 7 seed. You don't get a lot of these 6-7 matchups in the NBA, but here we are right now with the Warriors coming off a 7-game battle against the Rockets, and the Minnesota Timberwolves, they said it was Lakers in 5. It was Timberwolves in 5 over the Lakers, which was, while it was wrong in the series, a delight for me to see over the course of that very short first round series. So Minnesota's favored. I saw something where it's like the first time coming into a series that the Warriors have been underdogs since the Clippers' first round in 2014. Steve Kerr wasn't even the coach. That was the Mark Jackson team. Draymond Green wasn't even an NBA starter at that point. Time has passed. I was in, 4th grade? Like, it's been a minute, folks, since the Warriors have been underdogs coming into a playoff series. But nonetheless, according to Vegas, by the way, not by analytics system where ESPN had them. Anyways, so game 1 is tomorrow night. Minnesota is a 7.5-point favorite. That has just ticked up. It was started Minnesota minus 5.5. It's now Minnesota minus 7.5. This game is in over 24 hours. Wouldn't be shocked if it went up to as high as 8 in favor of the Timberwolves. So I'll say this in advance. I think the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to win game 1 of this series. Steph Curry played 46 minutes in game 7. The Warriors, obviously, it's win or go home. You got to throw all the chips to the middle table. Give everything you got. Play your butt off on the defensive end. Hold Houston to 89 points at home. But I think Minnesota, with almost a week off, will win game 1. If they lose game 1, if the Warriors take game 1, the series is over. It's over. It is. I will come on the show and say, forget about it. Warriors are in the conference finals already, might as well. Because I think this is a game Minnesota needs to get. Whereas the Warriors, we can get them in game 2 and steal home court advantage. So I actually feel like this is an amazing matchup for the Warriors. And I'll tell you exactly why. Because folks might bring up, oh man, Minnesota, look at all the size they got. Look what Rudy Gobert just did in the playoffs for the first. And by the way, while we're at it, can we look at Rudy Gobert's stats in that game 5 against the Lakers? Because man, oh man, he was feeling it. 27 points, 24 rebounds, 80% for the field. I mean, he was just crushing the Lakers. I couldn't. What was happening? And saying the Warriors don't have a big. Well, they do. They just don't necessarily play their bigs a ton. I think Kevon Looney is going to be huge in this game. Just like I thought he was huge in Game 7. I didn't give him enough credit in that first segment. I thought Looney was really good in Game 7, particularly in the first half last night in Houston. And so Looney's going to be big. And listen, the Timberwolves have good rangy defenders. Ann Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, Julius Randle played good defense on a tired, but still LeBron James in the first round last series. I still harken back to the point. I get he played well in the first round. And again, maybe I'll get burned by this. Julius Randle doesn't have a lot of great playoff moments on his resume. He had his first one against the Lakers, his former team that drafted him, all of it. Kudos. Major kudos. Don't see that repeating itself in the second round against a dynasty. It's one thing to do it against a very talented Lakers team. It's another to do it against 4-time champions in the last decade. So I really like the Warriors' chances on that front. I think Draymond Green is going to listen, he was really good against a better player, Şengün. Obviously in Game 4 and in Game 7 last night. Draymond's going to put the clamps on Julius Randle. He will be a non-factor in this series. And Edwards, listen, there ain't a soul on that Houston Rockets team to scare me one bit. Amin Thompson, the future, will scare me as a Warriors fan. Not quite yet. He's not there. Ain't a soul that scared me on Houston. And Edwards scares me. I will be totally honest. He scares me a little bit. This is a guy that's clipped Kevin Durant in a playoff series, swept him. Clipped Jokic and the defending champion Nuggets down 3-2, and then in a Game 7 down 20. Helped the Minnesota Timberwolves win that series against the defending champion, Jokic and the Nuggets. Lost to Luka and then beat Luka and LeBron in round 1 last series. So naturally, Steph's up next on that list. What will he do against Steph Curry and the Warriors? I think he'll be great because he's Ann Edwards, and I think he's one of the 5 best basketball players in the world. I think he'll be really good in this series. But for all of the, and I don't think Finch is going to try the strategy because he didn't in the regular season that Udoka used, at least in the second half of Game 6 and Game 7, where we're not going to be physical with Steph because that didn't work because Steph just overpowers us and is still going to get open looks. We're just going to double him. Like, listen, if Buddy Hield beats us and goes for 33, Buddy Hield beats us and goes for 33. That's okay. But Steph's not going to go nuclear like he's capable of doing. That's not really Finch's strategy. And for the record, to me, the deciding factor, folks. The Warriors were 3-1 against the Timberwolves this regular season. All 4 of those games came before Jimmy Butler was traded there. All 4. Now, the last time they played, I remember this game, was back in January. It was right when I first got here to Orlando. It was a game in January. I think it was a Wednesday night game on ESPN. Steph Curry hit a game-winning shot with under a minute left. All of it. That's the last time they played. It's been a minute since these two have faced off. And Minnesota has been a whole different basketball team post-All-Star break, but so have the Warriors with Jimmy Butler. I think it's a hard-fought series. I went game by game predicting the Rockets series last time. I went 6-1 in those picks, so not bad. Timberwolves win game 1. Warriors win game 2. Warriors win game 3. I think the Timberwolves win game 4 in Golden State. Yes, I'm predicting a home loss for my Warriors. And then the Warriors take games 5 and 6. Again, I get it. People talking about the size. Rudy Gobert. But you can have Rudy Gobert. You can have Daycare. You can have Ric Flair. Warriors in 6, ladies and gentlemen. Warriors in 6. They knock out the T-Wolves, advance to the Western Conference Finals for that would be now, the 8th time? 7th time. I apologize. The 7th time that the Warriors have gone to the conference finals in the last decade. They'll knock out the Minnesota Timberwolves in 6 games. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my NBA second round playoff predictions. Go and put them up one more time. I've got the Pacers in an upset over Cleveland in 7 games. I've got the Celtics. Listen, I hope this series goes 6 for raw entertainment. I don't, God forbid injury, knock on wood, there's no injuries obviously for any team, but I just don't see a world in which the New York Knicks beat the Boston Celtics 4 times in 7 tries. I just don't see it. The evidence just says the exact opposite, that it's not going to happen. So I'll give the Knicks a game. Jalen Brunson will get him a game. But I think the Boston Celtics win in a quick 5 games. Now, if the Knicks win tonight, maybe that is a 6-game series. Maybe on short rest against a rested Boston team, maybe it's like, oh, okay, like maybe this is actually something. This could be what we thought it would be coming into the season when we thought we would get a Knicks-Celtics playoff series. But Celtics in 5, Thunder in 6. I can admit, guys, I really don't feel great about this pick because I don't believe in the Thunder as a championship team. But they just have a deeper roster. They have a better coach. Jokic is the best player in the world, but SGA is obviously no slouch. I think we're going to see a lot of is SGA able to score? Maybe he will be because Denver's not a good defense, but will SGA be able to score as well as he did in the regular season without the foul baiting? I think we'll get a better look at that in the conference finals should OKC win against a great Minnesota defense or a great Warriors defense. But that's what I got. Speaking of that series, come on. Warriors in 6. Ant-Man, Batman, Superman. Warriors in 6. Y'all know what it is. Y'all know what it is. And I gotta be honest, Alfred, I completely disagree. Alfred's my guy, good friend of mine, but I completely disagree with this comment here. Dub's gonna need Kuminga for the series. I don't think Kerr trusts Kuminga. I don't trust Kuminga. I don't think Warriors players. I saw Steph Curry has the best body language of any superstar that I've seen in the NBA. Like, he is just eternal optimist, all of it. When Kuminga was on the floor last night, and a lot of this is because, hey, do or die game 7, every possession matters in this game. When Kuminga was out there just getting lost on defense and taking bad shots on offense, I think you could see Steph kind of like hanging his head like, oh boy, here we go again. Again, I said it at the start to start the show. Kuminga is a great athlete. He's a mediocre basketball player. He had some moments in the regular season where like, oh man, it's just not. He needs a fresh start, and I'll be pulling for him wherever that may be. But he needs a fresh start elsewhere in the Warriors. Tim Kamakami was the first on this. They're going to move on from him after this season. And he says Kuminga and Pat Spencer look good, and Jimmy Butler was unavailable in round 1. I didn't think Kuminga was that good in round 1. Pat Spencer mostly played garbage time minutes. He did play meaningful minutes in game 2. Listen, I like this kid. Alfred's called him my doppelganger, which is not entirely untrue. I will be honest about that. But at the same time, I thought he was good in the reserve minutes he got. I thought he was pretty good in game 2. He can shoot. He can finish. Yeah. I don't know if it's Pat Spencer's a great matchup against the T-Wolves and their size and length, but I wouldn't mind giving him some second quarter minutes in the series. Sure, why not? Like, especially at home when you use your depth more. Sure, let's do it. So here we go. Oh, I see this. This says Kendrick Perkins apologizes for ranking James Harden over Dwayne Wade. Yeah, why was that ever a thing, by the way? I was never – I'm a huge Dwayne Wade fan, so I'm partially biased. Why was that ever a thing? Just because he had an MVP and Wade didn't and he scored better than Wade? D-Wade in I would say one of the most impressive championships ever won. 2006, Miami Heat, Dallas Mavericks. Dallas is a great team. Dirk Nowitzki. Dirk won the MVP the next season when the We Believe Warriors knocked them out in the first round. But that was Shaquille O'Neal was on that team. But a year 3 kid in the NBA, Dwayne Wade, led the Miami Heat to their first NBA title against the Dallas Mavericks after being down 0-2. Like that kid. Listen, injuries kind of got D-Wade, knee injuries late in his career. Prime D-Wade was a monster. And so, but listen, his peak, regular season peak was not what Harden's peak was, but pull 100 NBA fans and ask them, Game 7, Harden or D-Wade? It's unanimous, D-Wade. It's not even close. So, Kendrick Perkins, not ever I have questions about his NBA analysis often, including in that instance. Why did you ever have him above him to begin with? Take a 1-minute break, usually with series or game or season predictions. I usually end the show there, but May 4th was yesterday, and as you know, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I've gotten the pleasure over the last 4 months, coming to an end soon, very bittersweet, of working in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge in Disney World. And so it's been an unbelievable opportunity, but I did want to do, after the break, a special May the 4th segment, and you'll see it coming up in just 1 minute. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Couple orders of business before we move on to our last segments. We've tried the IG thing, and it just does not seem to be working. We'll leave it up there just in case it is. Maybe it's just on my end. It's not showing up. But for some reason, I'm looking at the tab where I have it open, and it's like totally frozen. So I don't know if you're able to watch on IG, anyone on IG right now, welcome in. We're glad to have you. I hope it's working. And then the second thing I want to say as well is on ESPN, a lot of their writers predict series. And they had 12 ESPN NBA reporters, NBA journalists that picked Timberwolves Warriors. And of the 12, 11 of them picked Minnesota. 1 of them picked Golden State. For those that are wondering, the one was, shout out to her, Ramona Shelburne, who picked Warriors in 6. Listen, that's also my pick. So shout out to Ramona Shelburne, who does an outstanding job on the NBA and has done for some time. Nothing against the other insiders. They do a great job as well, but they're just going to be wrong in the series. A lot of it's most of it from what I can see here is Timberwolves in 7, and Ramona Shelburne has Warriors in 6. So Ramona, we won't forget your loyalty. Shout out to you. I don't know if she picked the Warriors or the Rockets in round 1. My guess is she probably did. And so Warriors are the underdogs. Kind of like it. I like when the Warriors are down. The Warriors tend to play their best ball when they do that. When that is the case. So did want to shift. There's some issues with the Wi-Fi now. So hang on just a second. We're actually going to close out IG because maybe that's affecting it. So hang on just a second, folks. Try and get this up. Because the stream is showing me the Wi-Fi is unstable on my end. So if it is on yours, I apologize. Because I want to have good connection for the last segment because it's a special one. It looks like it's loading back up. Okay. So, those of you that have followed the show for a long time, and I appreciate you all greatly, know that I'm a massive Star Wars fan. And yesterday was May the 4th, and I got the pleasure, once in a lifetime, most likely, of working in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge in Disney World, which is where I have been working for the last 4 months on the Disney College program at Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. It has been an incredible opportunity, and to be there, I worked there that morning, yesterday morning for May 4th, and then I got to go into the parks as a guest to experience all of the exciting celebrations for yesterday. And so I figured I've done a May 4th segment the last 2 years on the show, so I figured, hey, let's do another one. So if there's two things that I love as much as I love sports and presidential history, it's Star Wars and rankings lists. I will rank anything. If you give me rank X, Y, and Z, I'll rank them. So let's rank. Let's get this royalty-free, of course. We're not stealing John Williams' music, of course. The royalty-free Star Wars-esque music on tap and rank the top 11 movies in the Star Wars franchise. Here we go. So this is not Bryson's best 10, as it normally is. It's Bryson's best 11. So we'll rank the top 11 movies in the Star Wars franchise from 11 to 1. And I will almost guarantee you in advance, because again, by the way, there's technically 12. The Clone Wars movie I just associate with the Clone Wars TV show, so that doesn't count in my book. For others it does. That's fine if you do. For me, it does not. So at number 11, the 11th best, and by definition at this point, we're going to have a 12th next year, worst Star Wars movie of all time is Episode 8, The Last Jedi. And Last Jedi is the 11th best Star Wars movie of all time, and here's why. I've slightly warmed up to this movie more in recent years, mostly as it pertains to the portrayal of Luke Skywalker. Obviously, for those that are Star Wars fans know, Luke Skywalker, who's the hero of the original trilogy, is the bright-eyed, bushy-tailed optimist who, as the series goes on, becomes obviously the wise Jedi Master that he becomes toward Return of the Jedi in Episode 6. And in some ways, most felt that they kind of abandoned that in an older Luke Skywalker in Episode 8. I will defend it in the sense that, because people are like, oh, he redeemed Darth Vader, his father. Why would he betray or try and at one point kill his nephew, Ben Solo? Okay. Darth Vader being evil was not Luke Skywalker's fault. Ben Solo was slightly his fault, because he trained Ben Solo, who became Kylo Ren in the sequel trilogy. I defend that. Everything else, I think it is abomination. Listen, I understood what Rian Johnson was trying to do. I'll say this, of the 11 Star Wars films, it's probably the most aesthetically beautiful Star Wars film, just in terms of location. The battle at Crate toward the end of the film is unbelievable. I thought Rian Johnson basically just gave a big middle finger to Star Wars fans on a lot of fronts, not communicating to Mark Hamill well enough what he was trying to do with Luke Skywalker. Killing Admiral Akbar for the sheer fun of it was a weird choice. Ensuring some of this was Episode 7, but we never got a Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia scene. I know there was the one, but it wasn't actually Luke. You'd have to see the movie to know what I'm talking about. Before, God rest her soul, the late, great Carrie Fisher passed. It's not, certainly by Star Wars standards, it's just not a great film. Last Jedi is at number 11. At number 10 is another movie that was released relatively recently. It is Solo, A Star Wars Story. Solo, A Star Wars Story is the 10th best movie in the Star Wars franchise, and here is why. It's not even that it's a bad film. It's just you walk out, either if you saw it in a theater or you watch it on Disney Plus or something, you're like, I don't know. Han Solo is one of the most famous and beloved Star Wars characters in the entire franchise, played by, of course, the iconic Harrison Ford. It's not even that Han Solo's portrayal was bad. It was that, okay, there was a lot of questions we needed answered, like, okay, how did he get the Millennium Falcon? Okay, there was with Lando Calrissian and the relationship there, and it's kind of left you wanting a little bit more than it gave you. So again, it's not even that it was a bad movie. It was just, He meets Chewbacca in the movie, like all of it's like, it's fine. It's, Han Solo is a great character. Chewbacca is. Lando Calrissian is. Kind of would have wanted more from a prequel movie with those three characters. So, Solo Star Wars story, number 10 in the Star Wars franchise. At number 9, this might be there's going to be a number of controversial rankings of this list. Number 9 might be one of the most controversial because of how low I have it. At number 9, it is Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Attack of the Clones is the 9th best movie in the Star Wars franchise, and here's why. So, listen, I guess I like this movie better than Solo and The Last Jedi, but that's mostly just because of the flaws of those films in and of themselves. Of the 3 trilogies, the prequel trilogy is my personal favorite. This is a stain in that. So, it follows Phantom Menace, which, a lot of folks hate. You'll see, if I have Phantom Menace ranked higher than most, you'll see where I've got it. It's, first of all, the Obi-Wan mullet is, like, why? Like, I love Ewan McGregor, I love Obi-Wan Kenobi. Why? You had to obviously explain. The whole point of the prequel trilogy is to explain how Anakin Skywalker became Darth Vader. That's the whole point of the prequel trilogy that George Lucas put in motion. You have to explain, obviously, if Darth Vader is, spoiler alert, because there are spoilers in the segment for the record, is how you got to explain how Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia's father. Well, where's the mother? Well, you got to explain how Anakin Skywalker met the mother, and that is obviously Padme Amidala, who was the Queen of Naboo, senator from Naboo. George Lucas is one of the greatest visionaries in the history of cinema, maybe number 1. But as we know, he has a fatal blind spot. He cannot write dialogue to save his life. And for as cringy as some Star Wars dialogue can be, the Anakin and Padme interactions hurt to watch. And that's featuring 2 brilliant actors. Hayden Christensen, who plays Anakin Skywalker, Natalie Portman, who's one of the most accomplished actresses of this generation, who plays Padme. It's brutal. Brutal. The only, to me, bright spot in this film, there's 2 bright spots. Count Dooku, played by the late, great Christopher Lee, outstanding, kind of a villain slash hero. I thought, again, for great George Lucas, is the scene where it's an underrated scene in the prequel trilogy where Obi-Wan is captured by Count Dooku, who then literally tells him the plan of the Sith to overtake the Jedi, to kill the Jedi, and to turn the Galactic Republic into the Empire. He literally tells Obi-Wan to his face, and Obi-Wan doesn't believe him. That I find, I know the Jedi were full of hubris. Obi-Wan not quite as bad as some of the others, like Yoda or Mace Windu. So I thought that could have been executed a little bit better than it was. But Count Dooku's a bright spot, and the scene where the Separatists and the Jedi fight to begin the Clone Wars is a great kind of moment to see all the Jedi in action, all the lightsabers. It's great. But all in all, I think it's a very mediocre movie, and it's at number 9. I am not high on Attack of the Clones whatsoever. I don't like sand. Like, what? All right, at number 8, again, we're talking controversial rankings here. The 8th best Star Wars movie in the franchise is maybe the most controversial. Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Rise of Skywalker is the 8th best movie in the Star Wars franchise, and here is why. So, again, sequels are, I mentioned this episode 8, are the most aesthetically pleasing of any of the trilogies. The locations, it's unbelievable. So, everybody points to somehow Palpatine returned. Okay. They explained how I knew that became a meme, and we understand how one quote becomes reality, perception becomes reality. They explain in the very next line how Palpatine returned from the dead through cloning. Matter of fact, recently, I think in Bad Batch, which is a Star Wars show, Disney+, they explain further how Palpatine could have returned. And so people who just say, oh, how could this have... I get there are those that say it undoes Anakin Skywalker's prophecy as the chosen one. Anakin Skywalker's prophecy as the chosen one was to bring balance to the Force. It was not necessarily to destroy the ultimate Sith Lord. Like, we have to understand these things. So Palpatine coming back is not a bad thing. And if you're going to close out the entire Skywalker saga, why not bring back the most evil villain? Which they did. I like the backstory they gave with Leia and her Jedi training. I thought that was great. I thought they did a very good job of explaining Ben Solo turning back to the light, or Kylo Ren turning back to the light, becoming Ben Solo again. The one major flaw, I didn't like that General Hux, who's kind of like Kylo Ren's right-hand man in all of this, even though they hate each other, is this like almost like Nazi general in episode 7, and then by episode 9, I'm the rebel spy, or I'm the spy who was the mole in the operation of the First Order. That was weird. Like I did not think that was executed well. And the Ray and Ben thing was odd, but not crazy. I liked the where Ryan Johnson, that's one of the few things I did like where Ryan Johnson took it, where taking their relationship where he took it and then JJ kind of finished it. I know the kiss was kind of controversial. I understand that, but it wasn't a crazy move. I'll put it that way. So Rise of Skywalker closed out the Skywalker saga. And the last thing, and I will, people like, oh, how can she be Rey Skywalker? She's not okay. Leia is not an Organa. She is a Skywalker. She was adopted after, obviously, her mother died and her dad became the Dark Lord of the universe, of the galaxy. And so, is adoption not a thing? Can't Rey be an honorary Skywalker? She literally does not have a last name in the entire trilogy. So, that's where I'm at. Rise of Skywalker, I understand controversially, is the 8th best movie in the Star Wars franchise. At number 7 is the movie that began the sequel trilogy, The Force Awakens. Star Wars The Force Awakens Episode 7 is the 7th best movie in the Star Wars franchise, and here is why. I get the criticism, and I understand it to agree when people say, oh, it's literally a redo of A New Hope, of the original Star Wars movie. I get that because you have the Death Star in Episode 4, and you have Star Killer Base in Episode 7. You have a sort of prodigy, sort of force wielder from a desolate planet in Episode 4. You have the same in Episode 7. You have the villain with a tragic backstory in Episode 7. Same in Episode 4. Like, all of those things, I get it. But I think it's indisputable. Even sequel haters will say it's not a bad film. Like, it set up the sequel trilogy. I think Ryan Johnson kind of butchered it. Sequels could have been great, even better than I think. I'm higher than the most could have been. Ryan Johnson kind of messed it up. But I think the story of Finn being an ex-stormtrooper turned resistance fighter is great. It's creative. It's original. I think Rey's story of being a nobody to becoming a young Jedi is excellent. I do understand the one criticism some folks have of, okay, how is Rey, who's like never held a lightsaber until 2 days or a day before the fight Kylo Ren? Like, how does that even happen? I understand that, and it's not, they could have done a better job explaining that. Although you could also say Luke Skywalker had minimal training from Yoda and lost to Darth Vader, but held his own in Episode 5. All of those things aside, the Han Solo death is controversial. Spoiler alert, killed by his son Kylo Ren. First of all, Harrison Ford wanted his character to be killed in Empire Strikes Back. They didn't. He wanted Han Solo to have a meaningful piece, a sacrificial piece of the story. And it also helps move the story forward. It's a devastating way to do it, but it passes to the generation from Luke, Leia, and Han to Rey, Finn, and Poe Dameron. So I think they executed all of that well. Episode 7, Force Awakens. It was the film, the first Disney Star Wars film, and it was the first Star Wars film in a decade, basically. So Force Awakens is the 7th best film in the Star Wars franchise. I have this next movie ranked higher than most. Episode 1, the one that not the start at all, but the first of the Skywalker saga. Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, is the 6th best movie in the Star Wars franchise, and here is why. So, again, I understand when it came out, people kind of saw it as like the biggest letdown of any Star Wars film, because it was like, how did we go from Jedi and Dark Side and a Millennium Falcon to politics in Episode 1? I mean, it's trade disputes, it's Senate. It like what? It's, you got a queen, but she's not in a monarchy. Like, what is this? And then Jar Jar Binks. Okay, the Jar Jar Binks. Shout out to Ahmed Best, by the way, who's awesome. But the Jar Jar Binks could have been executed better. I love the fact that George Lucas began Anakin's story and set it up for episodes 1 through 6 to be the tragic story of Anakin Skywalker, who becomes Darth Vader, where part of that tragedy, or a major part of that tragedy is he's basically a slave his entire life. He's a slave, him and his mother, owned by Watto on Tatooine as a boy. He basically becomes a slave of a very corrupt Jedi Order in episodes 2 and 3, and becomes Palpatine's slave for the rest of his life until Luke Skywalker redeems him in episode 6. So I think that was genius on Lucas's part to kind of set up the pent-up anger and frustration that Anakin feels in episode 1 I think Liam Neeson delivers the best performance in the film as Qui-Gon Jinn. Darth Maul is obviously an all-time great. Darth Maul is my second favorite Star Wars villain to Darth Vader. Ray Park obviously did an unbelievable job as the duelist Darth Maul in the live action, and then obviously Ray Park did. Sam Witwer in the animated series has done a great job as well on Clone Wars in particular. Duel of the Fates, iconic, probably the second greatest lightsaber duel in the Star Wars franchise. I like Phantom Menace more than most, and for the record, some of the issues touched on in that film, kind of relevant today. I'll leave it at that. Phantom Menace, the sixth greatest film in the Star Wars franchise. Now we're into the top five. Now we're into the all-time greats. At number 5, it is Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. Rogue One, the fifth greatest film in the Star Wars franchise, is where I have it. So, obviously, and by the way, right now, which I will openly admit, I haven't even gotten a chance to watch it yet. Andor, which is season 2, is on right now on Disney Plus. I haven't gotten a chance to watch season 1. I've heard it's amazing. I'm going to binge watch it this summer. But the story of these rebels, these seemingly like nobodies, who end up stealing the plans of the Death Star to set up the events of Episode 4, the original Star Wars movie, A New Hope, is incredible. The scenery is unbelievable. The story is unbelievable. And listen, the only clunky part is bringing back Grand Moff Tarkin in this movie via AI. The actor who played him, I'm forgetting his name, had passed decades before, and they brought him back using, that was very young AI at the time in 2016, and so that was clunky. But director Krennic, I thought it was the way how they wrote his character was excellent. His end at the end on Scarif Beach is perfect, and then Darth Vader's probably the greatest villain, forget Star Wars, of any franchise ever, slightly beating the Joker. There is no greater Darth Vader scene than at the end of Rogue One, with the rebel fighters in the Star Destroyer, and Darth Vader is in their trap with them, trying to stop them from getting the plans to the rebels. Just goes full beast mode. Darth Vader, not even to the level that we saw him in the original trilogy. It was unreal stuff to watch. Rogue One is an outstanding Star Wars film. It is at number 5 on my list of the top 11. Bryce's best 10 at number 4. The only reason I have this one above Rogue One is because Rogue One set up this movie, the OG, the original, the one that started all of this nearly a half century ago, Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, which was originally just titled Star Wars back when it came out in 1977. It is at Episode 4 is at number 4 on my list. Where to begin? You have the Empire. We really get much on the Emperor in Episode 4. We get some of that in Episode 5 and a lot of it in Episode 6, of course. But you have this Darth Vader, this mysterious cloaked figure in the mask. Who is he? Who's the guy voiced James Earl Jones? God rest his soul. Passed away last year. Probably the greatest voice in any film ever. But this Darth Vader guy, wow. And Obi-Wan Kenobi, the wise elder statesman, Ben Kenobi, who is Luke Skywalker knows him by. Then you have these two droids, R2-D2, C-3PO, who are kind of feisty with each other. And then Han Solo, Chewbacca. Who's this big hairy thing? This Wookiee cookie? What's a Wookiee? Chewbacca. And then you have the Death Star, this thing that the Empire constructed with the sole reason, over the course of 20 years since the Empire began, at the end of Revenge of the Sith, to now, A New Hope, is the Empire's sort of ultimate, this is the nail in the coffin, we are going to own the whole galaxy, we are going to bend it to our will, because if you don't follow us, we will literally destroy your civilization on your planet. And then the story of Luke, use the Force, Luke, to be able to destroy the Death Star at the end, in large part because the events of Rogue One, is incredible. The development of Han Solo's character is really well done by George Lucas. And obviously Princess Leia, almost forgot Leia, my bad. This feisty senator from Alderaan, who obviously gets obliterated by the Death Star midway through the film. It was ballsy, let's put it that way, by George Lucas, especially in the 70s, to have this beautiful woman character be the badass of the film. And that's what Princess Leia was. And that was unfortunately not very common at the time. And George Lucas took that step. And Carrie Fisher, God rest her soul, was incredible in that role, of course. And so episode 4 kicked off the whole thing. So it is the fourth best film in the Star Wars franchise. Into the top 3 now. At number 3, I have this. It's a great film. I just have it ranked lower than most. Number 3, it is The Empire Strikes Back, episode 5. It is my opinion, the third best film in the Star Wars franchise. Again, where to begin? Most people have this as the number 1. I have it at number 3 because the 2 above it, one is personal preference and one I think it is just a better movie. We'll get to those. I think you can guess what those are at this point, just what the rankings are. But episode 5. So again, you had a lot to live up to. Most of the time, sequels are just not as good as the original. It's kind of a cliche. Empire was better. Empire was better because it was one of the rare action films at the time, and even recently to a degree. Infinity War kind of did this in the Marvel franchise, where you get to the end, and the bad guys won. I mean, they did. Like, in and of itself, the bad guys won. Darth Vader beat Luke Skywalker, cut off his hand. Okay, Han Solo is frozen in carbonite by Boba Fett with the Empire. Okay, so Jabba gets his prize and bringing Han Solo back for the unpaid debts. Okay, Lando Calrissian, this new character introduced. Shout out to Billy D. Williams, who plays Lando. It is this, again, this mysterious cake character on Cloud City on Bespin is the musical score by John Williams is 10 out of 10 in this film. The Battle of Hoth is outstanding. Yoda, that was Yoda's first movie, training with Luke Skywalker on Dagobah. Like, it's an A++ film. And again, probably the most iconic line, it's misquoted iconically, but the most iconic line in Star Wars, bar none. No, I am your father. People say, Luke, I am your father. That is not the line. It is, no, I am your father. Darth Vader to Luke Skywalker. And maybe the most shocking cinematic turn of events of all time, certainly in any action franchise that George Lucas threw in. Not even Mark Hamill, who plays Luke, obviously, shout out to Mark Hamill, was one of the few that knew. Originally, the line was, no, Obi-Wan killed your father. Boy, how that would have set the prequel trilogy and others into a new set of events. But Mark Hamill's one of the few that knew, and if there's a famous story he tells Harrison Ford during the premiere of the film, turns to him after the line. He says, hey, you didn't effing tell me that. Like, it's shocking. Empire Strikes Back, all-timer of a film. Most have it as number 1. It's not even that I don't think it's not number 1. I just have it at number 3 because I think the 2 films of it, one for personal preference, one I think is just a little bit better. Empire Strikes Back, the third best film of the Star Wars franchise. At number 2 is the last film of the original trilogy. It is Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi, the second best movie in the Star Wars franchise. So you have, at this point, they return back to Tatooine. There's the Jabba the Hutt introduction, probably the most disgusting character, bar none, of the Star Wars franchise. Although that cow thing in Episode 8 probably took the cake or the milk or whatever. But you have Jabba the Hutt, this gangster from Tatooine who's got Han Solo frozen in carbonite. You have Leia that saves him. You have, by the way, everyone saves him, but Leia's the one who goes in and does it. You have Luke Skywalker, who's matured in Episode 4 from being kind of immature and not really understanding anything at all. I think he was 19 in that film. And then by Episode 6, he's this wise, in touch with his emotions Jedi with now a green lightsaber. It's green lightsaber, personally my favorite color. And you have the Ewoks. People get on the Ewoks. I get it. I do like the fact that it was these little teddy bears, basically, that took down the Empire, most notably the Stormtroopers in the ground war on Endor, which is one of my favorite Star Wars planets, in Episode 6. And then you have, obviously, the Death Star 2 with Lando and with oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the pilot's name now. Wedge being able to destroy the second Death Star, Admiral Akbar. It's a trap in the war in the air. And then, of course, you have the introduction of the iconic Emperor Palpatine, played by the great Ian McDiarmid, and is excellent in this film. Use your anger, Luke. You know, or Skywalker, young Skywalker. And, of course, the thing that makes Star Wars so beautiful is Darth Vader, this evil to the core character that we met in A New Hope, who we see that because of the prequels, fulfills the prophecy, saves his son, kills the Emperor, and in killing the Emperor, sacrifices himself. There's the moment between Luke and now he dies, not as Darth Vader, but as Anakin Skywalker, one of the most touching moments in the Star Wars universe. I love Return of the Jedi. The sequence at the end, the new score that John Williams put in, I think is outstanding with the Ewoks dancing. All like most people have the original trilogy at number one of the three. I get that, and I think most don't have Return of the Jedi as their number one. I do. I just love the film start to finish. It's fantastic. And at number one, some would say the GOAT, the best, the greatest Star Wars film ever made at any point in the 48 years that this beautiful franchise has existed. It is, one might say, and I'll explain why, the Tom Brady of Star Wars movies. It is Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Revenge of the Sith is the best film in the Star Wars franchise, and here is why. Oh, baby, where do we begin? So first of all, some of this might be recency bias because it just celebrated its 20-year anniversary this year. Literally, like last week, I went and saw it in the theater at the AMC Theater with a couple of my coworkers, friends. So shout out to them. So that was unbelievable. It's the Tom Brady of Star Wars films for this reason. You start with a bang, the battle over Coruscant. This is where the fun begins. And it's like, boom, it's Count Dooku in a rematch from the end of episode 2. Count Dooku's back. And Anakin has matured as a young Jedi Master. And I'm sorry, not a Master, my bad. As a young Jedi Knight. And then you have this coughing humanoid thing, General Grievous. What is he? He's really got a badass with blasters and lightsabers as we see later, and that's Tom Brady. First 5 years of his career, bam, 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 3 Super Bowls. Here we go. And the middle of the film is still really good. You have, obviously, hello there. You know, all of that. Anakin's not granted the rank of master. Middle of Tom Brady's career. It's great. MVPs, got 2 Super Bowls, but never got a ring in that span. And then the end of Brady's career happened to be the best. He got 4 Super Bowls over the course of his final 9 seasons and won an MVP at age 40. That's the end of this film. From the moment that Palpatine, with the help of Anakin, defeats Mace Windu, and in that moment, or soon after, Anakin becomes the legend, Darth Vader, it is from that point on, you have Order 66, in which all the Jedi are eliminated in, obviously, tragic fashion. Chewbacca actually makes a cameo with Yoda on Kashyyyk, the Wookiee planet. You then transition to when Padme finds out that Anakin's turned to the dark side. When Obi-Wan and Yoda find out Anakin's turned to the dark side and become Darth Vader. And then the end of the film, you get Yoda versus Palpatine, the elder statesmen of the Jedi and the Sith, battling out in the Senate chamber. The Republic goes from that to the Empire, and then you have the greatest duel in the history of the Star Wars franchise. Darth Vader / Anakin Skywalker against his old master, Obi-Wan Kenobi, in a battle that was referred to in Episode 4, the first Star Wars movie, A New Hope. And then we see it come to pass on Mustafar, the lava planet. These two just a beast of Jedi going back and forth, blow for blow, throwing haymakers. By the way, while there's literal lava beneath them. And then Obi-Wan infamously gains the high ground. That's the end of 3 of Anakin Skywalker's limbs. And of course, toward the end of the film, in the surgery after he was almost burnt to death, is put in the Darth Vader suit. Luke and Leia are born. It is just it's a masterpiece of a film. And again, some of it is because, some of this is because it's the most recent Star Wars film I saw, because I saw it in theaters for the re-release. It is just flawless. It's one of my 5 greatest films I've ever seen in my life. And so, there you have it. That was one of the longest segments we've done on our show. And so, for those that primarily know Carving Up as a sports show, I do have somewhat of an apology. But listen, I love this franchise. I love the fact that in a small way, I've gotten to be a part of it at Galaxy's Edge. But these movies are all-time stuff. If you've never seen Star Wars, listen, 3 years ago, I hadn't either. I'm a new fan. My sister got me into it. Now I'm hooked. But of the 11 movies, that's where I've got it. So just to go back over it, for those that are maybe joining late, from 11 to 1, ranking the Star Wars films in my mind. Number 11, The Last Jedi. Number 10, Solo. Number 9, Attack of the Clones. It's not a good movie, guys. Number 8, The Rise of Skywalker. Number 7, For The Force Awakens. At number 6, The Phantom Menace. Number 5, Rogue One. Number 4, A New Hope. Number 3, The Empire Strikes Back. Number 2, Return of the Jedi. And number 1, Revenge of the Sith. Man, these are great films. If you haven't catched them yet, do yourself a favor. Take a couple of weekends. We're all busy. Take next couple of weekends, binge the movies. I would recommend doing it in order, 1 through 9. If you want to start with the originals, then the prequels, and the sequels, have at it, just in terms of when they were released. I say go 1 through 9, or 1 through 9. To be honest, you don't really need to see Solo. It's not necessarily a needed, like, it's canon, it counts, but it's not a great film. Let's put it that way. You do need to see Rogue One before episode 4. That's all I'll say. So, man, basically a 25-minute montage of me talking about Star Wars. But I love this universe, and listen, finish it the right way. So, got Mandalorian Grogu coming out next year. I think Rey, shout out to Daisy Ridley. She's awesome. There's the Rey movie coming out probably in the next 2 to 3 years. Awesome stuff. So, with that is all the time I have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by as always. Be sure to catch Carving It Up live, or I apologize, Carving It Up. Probably won't be live on Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on YouTube as well as on X. We will catch everybody then. Stay safe out there, everybody. God bless y'all. Peace out. And may the Force be with you. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.